Today, the first of 3 cut days in the NFL. Teams getting their rosters down to 85. Russell Wilson will not be cut. Breaking news. Next week, they cut it to 80. And then a couple weeks from today, the big one down to 53. You're going to have one preseason game Thursday, a handful more on Friday this week. Again, just 3 preseason games again this season. Made that change a year or so ago. The cut dates today, next Tuesday, and the following Tuesday, and then we get going in the NFL. So let's get a little breakdown here from former GM Rick Spielman. What's it like when you're getting it down to 85? I mean, are you already looking ahead to the 80 cut next week and then getting it down into the 50s the week after?
Yeah, right now you're probably already down to your 53. So this first cut, the 85 cut, is not very difficult at all. A lot of times you will cut guys that are probably not NFL prospects, or what we would term camp bodies. There are guys that you may see waived injured, which means that they'll go revert to IR, but teams will try to do an injury settlement with them so they can eventually get them back if they want them. But for the most part, you're not going to see a lot of big names. If you do see a lot of big names or a big name that comes out, it's more than likely that they feel very confident about what they have behind that big name at that position. And from an economic standpoint, it's going to be a lot cheaper to maybe keep a young guy or a rookie. So they'll eventually let that player go, that veteran go, so it may give him an opportunity to sign with someone else.
All right, we'll keep our eye and see if there are any interesting names that end up being cut today, but more than likely it's a lot of people that were not expected to make the roster in the first place. Each year we talk about, the preseason risk versus reward. It's one thing for a guy like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers to sit out preseason. I mean, you don't really need to see them play at all, but Zach Wilson in particular, a guy who goes out and gets injured. I mean, how do you weigh the, risk versus reward, where the risk is high for injury, the reward probably quite a bit lower because you're just looking at development. But it's a young guy who needs development.
Correct. And I think what teams are doing now is each coach, and I always refer to the head coach and to the coaching staff to determine who needs the reps in preseason to get them ready for the regular season. Now, Zach Wilson, young quarterback going into his second year, they probably felt he needed some live game action. The other thing that I always thought was truly valuable, and I think you're seeing that a lot more in the NFL, is these combined practices or teams working against each other. So your starters can get a lot of work in a controlled environment where your quarterback's not getting hit or putting anyone at risk. So I think a lot more teams are leaning towards that way. But, I saw Frank Reich work with Matt Ryan for a couple series, but that's his first time into that system.
Sure.
Mahomes played for the first series against Chicago this past weekend. So each coach has their own philosophy on how they believe they have to get their players and their team ready to play in the season opener.
If you don't have a starting quarterback, the backup quarterback, a star starter anyway, the backup is often the most popular guy on the team. That goes for college, that goes for NFL.
It's kind of like me, the backup to Pete. I'm like,
we love you a lot more than we like Pete Prisco. Look, we saw that in Pittsburgh. They went out, they got Mitch Trubisky, and he's the presumed starter right now, but they spent a first-round pick on Kenny Pickett. He comes out to loud cheers, performs really well against the 2s and the 3s for the Seattle Seahawks. From a front office perspective, from a coaching perspective, though, there's a lot of pumping the brakes after a game like that to try to calm the fans down a little bit.
Yeah, no, you look at what he was able to do when Pickett went into the game, and I think that was the first time, or he led all first-round rookie quarterbacks in a quarterback rating in his debut in a preseason game. Also led all the rookie quarterbacks in completion percentage. So you saw him make plays with his legs, also with his arm. I think they simplified it a little bit, so he only had one read on a lot of boots and play actions that they seen him do. But the thing that was encouraging was that when the bright lights came on, and that's his home stadium, that's where he played all his college games, he seemed to rise to that occasion. And so that was a great sign. And then at the end of the game, for him to take him down for a game-winning drive to beat the Seattle Seahawks that night. So there's a lot of things, but you also, from a front office standpoint and from a head coaching standpoint or the coaching staff standpoint, let's slow it down here a little bit. That was against Seattle's 2s and 3s, and a lot of those guys probably aren't going to be on the team 3 weeks from now. But it shows that there's a bright future ahead of him, and it'll be interesting to see how much he can progress through the rest of this preseason. And if Trubisky is their starter, do they go with a Pickett or do they go with a Rudolph if Trubisky starts to struggle or Trubisky gets hurt?
I think a lot of our experts think that at some point it's going to be Kenny Pickett starting this season for the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe just not for a little bit into the season, maybe October and November. Let's move on to another team in the division, the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson's situation still hanging out there, but we know he's going to miss at least the first 6 games. We saw him go out there with the ones in preseason game 1. Sounds like it's going to be Jacoby Brissett against the ones in preseason game 2. Do you agree with that decision?
Yeah, you have to start getting your starter ready. And Brissett's going to be their starter at least for 6 games and probably longer than that as well. So now's the point in training camp where you have to get your team ready to play in that season opener. Brissett's going to be your starting quarterback. He has to not only get all the reps in the preseason if they're going to play him, but also all the reps in practice as well. The other thing to point, Deshaun probably did not play his best or look his best after that long layoff, that I would still play him in the second half just to get some rust off and to get him knocked around a little bit. And not that you want to put him at risk for injury, but if he does get injured, you don't have to really worry about him playing any significant time probably this year.
And as a coaching staff, as we said, you're not going to have him for the first 6 games. It might be longer. So as a coaching staff, you start worrying about things down the road with Deshaun, if and when he comes back. In the front office, though, what's going on in Cleveland right now when you just don't know how long he's going to be out? You don't know if you have to make a move this season.
Well, what you do know is that you have to get Brissett ready to play. What you don't know is hopefully and usually they're going to have that final determination on whether he's suspended for the season or where he's at. But I would say this, they have a very good defense. They have a good running game. You're focused right now on knowing what your strengths are and where you may need to pick up a player or two to help some of the deficiencies that you do have on your roster at this time. You can't worry about what you can't control. You have to worry about what you can control and get your team and put the best team out there that's ready to play on opening day.
We're going AFC North heavy here in this conversation with Rick Spielman. Let's move on to the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson contract situation. The latest news is he says he wants to either get this thing done by week 1 or we're going to shut it down. We're not going to talk about it the rest of the season. And I think maybe in certain circumstances you might scoff at that in the front office, say let's keep talking during the season. This is not a normal situation though, right?
No, and most of the time when a player and you are negotiating, and we've done this many times and I've been in these situations, that 11th hour comes up right before the regular season begins. Because all of a sudden, if that contract is not done, all the injury risk goes to that player. So you have to look at Deshaun's situation. I can tell you about this time of year and for the next 3 weeks, we're going almost 24/7 with a representative of that player or player's agent trying to get to negotiating, trying to get to an outcome that both the team likes and the player likes. But in Lamar's situation, he's got to get ready for the season. He's sitting in quarterback meetings, he's sitting in team meetings, he's out there practicing, he's doing all the ancillary things that you have to do to get your body ready for the season. So when is he doing this negotiating as well? So that's why, to me, it's kind of a unique situation because, and when you're talking contract with an agent, you're sometimes saying some things that you think may be disrespectful to the player.
That you maybe wouldn't say in front of the player's mother, who might also be
you would. That's why they have a representative, because it's all a negotiating ploy and all part of the business. The other thing, if they do not get this contract done, I'm sure Lamar took out an insurance policy, because if he goes down and has a significant injury or a career injury and is going to play on the last year of this deal, that's going to be a significant amount of money lost unless he has a technical Lloyd's of London type insurance policy. And to buy that insurance policy, I can tell you, is very, very expensive.
So do we know right now where he's going to slot in, as far as we've seen so many contracts for whether you're a veteran that's been there a long time like Aaron Rodgers or a younger player in the league like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes? Do we know what these numbers are going to look like?
You know, where you start in this situation is if he plays under this year's contract and you have to franchise him next year, I'm estimating that franchise number is going to be between $47 or $48 million. So that's the floor. But then you have to look at all these contracts that just came in. I think Patrick Mahomes, he has the richest contract out of anybody at 10 years, $450 million. Aaron Rodgers, he's got the highest average per year at $50.2 million. Then you look at Deshaun Watson's deal, and it's $230 million guaranteed, which is the highest out of anyone in the league. So I know he's going to come in north of where Kyle Murray was, but I'm guessing that he's going to be somewhere close to right below, if not at that $50 million range. And the biggest argument is going to be how much money of that is going to be guaranteed. And that's the thing. If he wants the Deshaun Watson guarantee, I don't know if the league is fully ready to commit to fully guaranteed contracts.
All right, so we'll see what happens here in the next couple of weeks, as Lamar Jackson says he's going to shut down negotiations once the season starts, heading into the final year of his rookie contract. Rick Spielman with us here on HQ. The NFL returning to CBS Week 1, September the 11th, also streaming live on Paramount Plus. And CBS Sports Football Pick'em is the best way to make the competition fun. Run a custom picks or survivor pool with friends. Enter our CBS Sports Challenge for the chance to win guaranteed weekly and season-long prizes. Also a $100,000 jackpot. Get started now, cbssports.com/football, or click on more on the menu at the CBS Sports app.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.